Somerville Community Access gives the population of the community a tool by which they can produce programs, be involved in the medium themselves. Also, it brings the activities of Somerville into people's homes. Political issues can be discussed. Religious programs can come into homes. A whole variety of views can be presented that people ordinarily would not have access to. I think it brings a community closer together.
Somerville Community Access Television allows ordinary people to do extraordinary things, and it allows to give a voice to real people of America, if you want, or of their own communities. And it would allow the community access to information and to a knowledge of its own community, which will not be available in regular commercial stations.
We have a lot of diversity on our station. We can see everything from teens dancing to exercise programs to Haitian programming, Portuguese programming, deaf people, programs about deaf people, our show, which is local programming, regional programming, and I really appreciate that diversity. I think it reflects the community, and I think it's an incredible resource for the community, that if you want to say something about what's happening in Somerville or about the town, you can come here and make a show. Or if you know a show that someone else has made, you can get it on the air, or you can call in and say, please show it again. I think this is a good night to show it. I think that's an incredible resource. We're really lucky to have it. Not all towns have public access, and we have a really strong one, and we should be really grateful for that and use it.
When I first came here, they taught us how to edit and use the studio. You learn the studio, you learn portable production, and after a while you get it all together and you learn how to put your own show on, and it's very interesting. I mean, anybody can really do it if they come in, and you have to take the first step. If you don't take the first step to get in here, you can't produce a show. It's impossible.
Good evening and welcome to Dead Air Live. I'm Grace Playton. Tonight's program is The Future of Access in Somerville. In the next hour, we'll discuss public access and its importance to the community. We'll also discuss the cable license renewal going on right now in Somerville. But first, we thought you might want to learn more about Somerville Community Access Television and how you can get involved. Local access producer Maurice Rucker produced this tape titled, Who is SCAT? Let's watch.
Somerville Community Access Television is a nonprofit organization located at the old firehouse at 90 Union Square. That's where we are. That's what we do. But really, who is SCAT?
Well,
SCAT is your neighbor, voicing her concerns about our environment.
Hi, I'm Francine Amari with an environmental alert report for you and your family.
SCAT is our youth having a good time at a safe place, free of distractions.
Hi, I'm with my young friends from Somerville. And is Somerville the greatest city around?
Yeah!
SCAT is newsmakers.
And this show looks at the political, economic, and social leaders of our state. Tonight I'm very happy to have as my guest William Weld, Patricia Jalin, Congressman Joseph Kennedy, Mayor Michael Capuano.
But not only keeping us informed, SCAT is a laugh and a smile. It's a day at the park. SCAT is arts and local entertainment. SCAT gives you the ability to learn and grow with your family.
Hi, I'm Roberta Pasternak, here to introduce you to Kidnetics, a fun-filled educational experience of moving and playing with your child.
SCAT is our senior community, enjoying life, teaching us about our history, and always exploring new forms of expression.
What? You don't want to go to Erasmus. That's a co-ed school.
Yes.
I always thought you'd go to a girls' school.
Erasmus is a co-ed school where boys and girls go together. But all my friends are going there, and I would very much like to go there.
No, I would not like to have you go to Erasmus or any co-ed school. I think you should go to Girls High.
SCAT is lawyers at work, letting us know about our rights as well as our responsibilities. It's Superintendent of Schools John C. Davis and his spotlight on education.
Has grown over the years. Can you tell us, if we start with scale, how many staff members you have and the kinds of programs that are available to not only Somerville residents, but also residents outside of Somerville?
And SCAT is about your health. We have the unique opportunity to see our future leaders, and together we can share some of our proudest moments. So really, who is SCAT?
We like to try to think of ourselves as being a community resource and a community service organization. Primarily, we happen to be television. That's the way that I like to put it. Television is a service that we're providing, but what we're really hoping to do is provide a way that the community can talk to itself.
Our strength lies in our diversity, a world of ideas under one roof. Somerville residents from all walks of life, breaking barriers. SCAT is not for a select few, it's TV by and for the community. SCAT is her, SCAT is them, SCAT is him, SCAT is you.
Welcome back. In this segment, we're going to discuss the role of public access in the community. Joining me now are three guests. Walter Pirro, who's the director of SCALE, Somerville's Adult Learning Center, Kate Cloud, the director of Respond, Somerville Shelter for Battered Women and Their Children, and Joe Fortunato, a local access producer. Welcome, all of you. Walter, I want to start with you. Can you tell us more about SCALE and how SCAT has helped you in your program?
SCALE, as you mentioned, is the Adult Learning Center for the City of Somerville and is part of the public school system. We work primarily with undereducated adults in the community, those being in need of English as a second language, high school equivalency, or maybe some basic skills. Several years ago, as part of a training program that was funded for adult educators statewide, I was contacted and some members of my organization as to whether we would like to become trained as access producers. We took the training and involved some of our students in a production that we eventually collaborated with the Somerville Historical Society and produced a tape on site there. We all learned a lot, and it was then that I first became involved with SCAT. And shortly thereafter began serving on the board of directors.
And why don't you tell us, as the board on the board of directors, what is SCAT's philosophy, pretty much?
Well, SCAT's philosophy, from the board's perspective, I think involves assuring the community that the access to which it's entitled will be given. And having said that, we on the board talked many times about issues involving the First Amendment and free speech and the issues of censorship, important issues of community access and so forth. It was a very exciting and stimulating time.
Now, Kate, can you tell us more about Respond and how SCAT has helped you in your program?
Yes. Respond provides services and emergency shelter for battered women and their children, and probably you know that battering is the single largest cause of injury to women in this country today, so it's just critical that we are able to get information out about what services we have to offer so that women can call us when they're in trouble. And SCAT has been a wonderful vehicle for us to get the word out. You know, last year there was a program on this show, Dead Air Live, on Respond and services for battered women. We also have on the community bulletin board a message that comes around every so often reminding women that if someone in your life is abusing you, we can help. Call us. We'd like to help you.
And I understand that you're also the former community representative for the Council for Children here in Somerville, and that was involved in SCAT also?
Right, that was my first experience in Community Access TV. I think the first thing we did was a legislative forum that has become an annual event. We met with our state senator and our state representatives at a time, not at election time, at a time when we could really dig into the issues and talk about the various issues, in this case concerning children. And that's been going on every spring now, just almost every spring since then. And I hear that there'll be one coming up this coming spring. I hope people will watch.
Oh, great. Okay, and Joe Fortunato, you're a local access producer. Can you tell us how public access has affected your life?
It's gotten me very busy right now. I've learned how to edit. I started out with a camcorder, and then you learn what you can do with the video you've shot, and you've learned how to insert proper audio and get the best video and only use the best stuff. And I edit about 8 hours a day now. It's my job.
Yeah, and why don't you tell us what you do?
Well, I do a lot of weddings, of course, anniversaries, and I'm starting to do more for business. But I still like to do public access shows. I like doing things that involve the community. I like to do shows, senior citizen shows. You'll see one coming up, I believe.
Okay.
Seniors are really appreciative. They're really appreciative to, and you can't expect them to lug cameras around and do shows themselves, and they're really appreciative.
Well, why don't we turn to the tape that you made for us showing pieces of your work. And this is a tape by Joe Fortunato.
Gym in Somerville, across from Lowe's Cinema. Hulk Hogan just arrived amidst many, many fans, hundreds, maybe thousands of fans, all cheering for the Hulk. He gave an announcement saying that he will not retire, but instead seek to beat the Warrior and regain his title, as well as absolutely crush and mangle the Earthquake and Jimmy Hart.
Timmy. All right, right here.
We have some Hulkamaniacs with us. What brings you here today besides the great Hulk?
Just the Hulk!
with Pat, one of the owners of World Gym. Welcome, Pat.
How you doing there?
Pat, what's it like to have Hulk Hogan come here and excite the crowd like this?
Well, it's quite a thrill to have Hulk Hogan anytime he's in town, training down here at the World Gym in Somerville. We're always thrilled to have him here. But today is special. He announced that he's not going to retire, and he's down here at the World Gym in Secret Combat Zone, training. He's hanging and banging to get ready to fight the earthquake. It's going to put him in his place, I think.
You think so? Oh, boy.
On the carpet, please.
I started thinking about my belt, then I started thinking about the earthquake, then I started thinking about the warrior, and I said, hell no, I'm not retiring, man.
The Assembly Square Mall today at Elderfest. My name is Brenda Parisi. I'm a registered nurse at the hospital. We have many services to offer you. We've visited with so many people today, several hundred at least, and we have multiple types of clinic. We have 60 plus. We have the Mystic Health Clinic, East Somerville Clinic. We have Teen Connection, Family Health Service, and Pediatrics. And for anybody who would like any further information, please contact the hospital. Phone number is 666-4400, extension 147. The Department of Community Health is here to serve.
She has chosen a gorgeous floral pants and jacket ensemble by Adrian Christine from New York, available at Cashier's Corner. This would be perfect to wear in the late afternoon or early evening reception.
This is my third year to the Assembly Mall. I had a most beautiful day. I am a senior and I love it.
Very nice.
To the prom.
It's the 1991 Scat Prom. I hope you had a good time.
Hey, my name is Maurice. I'm here at the Scat Prom. We're having a great time. And I got one of my compadres here. And what's your name, sir?
My name is Klaus Schmidt.
Klaus Schmidt. So you having a good time here tonight, Klaus?
This is like the best time I've ever had.
Speak up, speak it up.
had the best decorations of anybody we played for, too. You get points for that.
And in fact, the Scat Prom Decoration Committee is going freelance if you want.
And there were many, many people who helped us do the decorations. Joe Newfield and Ann Tracy and Bertrand Lawrence. And there were many volunteers who went out and put posters all around, and everybody did a great job, and I want to thank them very much.
And we're back. You've just seen a tape produced by local access producer Joe Forciano. And actually, what that was the essence of public access, just showing the community having a good time doing their own thing. Isn't that right, Joe?
They look like they're having fun.
Yeah.
A lot of young people enjoying Hulk Hogan, a lot of his fans, and the seniors in Somerville, they line dancing and enjoying the fashion show down at Summer Square Mall, and the Scat Prom, which is the first thing I did as a member of SCAT this year.
And I think that's really important, just to show what people in the community are doing and enjoying, and you just produce it and show it on the air, which is great.
And what they have access to.
Yeah.
Hopefully more people will get more ideas of what they can do.
Mm-hmm. What I wanted, I know that you first learned about public access through Medford Access.
My hometown, yes.
Yes, and I wanted to know if you could compare, just do a small comparison of how Medford is and how SCAT is.
Well, Somerville's publicly accessible, which is good. There are about 8 bus routes that come by here, and they're open at 9 in the morning. Medford, rather than have a public access facility, they use Medford High after 3 o'clock. But it's like 2 miles from the nearest payphone, and there's no buses that go there. No seniors have ever used it. So, but the Cable Advisory Committee recommended a public access facility. So it looks good for next year. Finally, the public will have an accessible facility.
Great. So what Medford is experiencing is what we already have, so we're very lucky, actually.
We're open regular hours,
Yeah.
and it's accessible. But you should be open on Sunday and Monday, because I had to put this tape together today, on Tuesday. So I'd like to see you open on Mondays, too.
All right, and I understand that you just recently won an award. Would you like to tell us about that?
Well, it was an award. I did a video on the fine arts at Temple Shalom in Medford, and the rabbi narrated it, and it was really interesting. A lot of artwork and that has been donated by the congregation, and the rabbi did quite a good job of narrating it, and he really produced it. I just edited it together and made a tape, and they won a National Synagogue Foundation Award, first place in the fine arts category for their fine arts.
Mm-hmm.
So
good.
I'm proud of that.
Walter, I want to turn to you because I understand that you've also produced your own program here on SCAT, Somerville Profiles. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. I had a lot of help in producing it, but the idea came from a group that I belong to, which is called the Somerville Education Cable Council, whose purpose is to promote educational programming in the city. And education can be defined very broadly in terms of SCAT's context. And we discussed sort of a talk show idea, but featuring I guess the people of Somerville as opposed to maybe the public officials or some of the more better known individuals. And with SCAT's help, what I was able to do was to bring them into the studio, sit them down under these bright lights after sort of an initial period of some nervousness that we both had. They spoke about a Somerville that they knew and loved and enjoyed, and spoke of a Somerville of maybe 50 or 60 years ago. Friends and neighbors growing up in this community. I found it very enjoyable to do, and I think the community responded well. We had a lot of interest in it, and I think it showed a piece of Somerville that a lot of, we can talk about the newcomer community, recent arrivals to the community that they didn't know or had never heard about. And so a bit of oral history, I think, was found through that program as well.
Oh, good. So I guess I can put out this question to all three of you. Why do you think public access is so important? Why don't you start, Kate?
Well, if it's not too cliched, I guess I could say that public access is user-friendly. You can call up if you like something and say, oh, play that again. You can call up if you don't like something and say, whoa, what's that? You can, if you want to, get involved in actually producing programs here. So it's really a place where people can use the airwaves, which are our airwaves, and this is our best chance for actually getting to use it. And as also, as we've seen, it can be really fun.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Joe?
I think it's very important. I think that television is the most powerful communications medium in the history of mankind, as so far. And I think it's very important that there's a lot of commercial television, and I think it's fine for a cable company to make profits and have 50 commercial stations, but I think the public should have one, and the city should have one when they sign a contract to have all the commercial channels. It's important.
Yeah. Why do you think?
Well, just picking up on what Joe said about television being this important public communication medium, as an educator of adults, I know that they watch a lot of television. And with SCAT's help a few years ago, we were able to put together a program that cablecast some literacy videotapes right into their homes. The wonderful spin-off effect we found was that not only were the adults watching and learning, but their children, who might have been preschool age, watched and learned as well. So it was a very powerful experience for me, and I think for the participants.
Great. And so now let's talk about how SCAT has won several awards, which I'm sure you know about being on the board of directors. If you could just mention some of those.
Well, I think it was 2 years ago that I was very proud to accept on SCAT's behalf the award as the best the best community access center in the country. And it was awarded by the NFLCP, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about later. But it just speaks to the excellence of what goes on here. And it really spoke about how the philosophy is put into practice and how that's recognized. And we in Somerville are very, very fortunate to have the excellence that SCAT delivers to the community and have that be acknowledged.
Okay. I wanted to thank all of you for joining me for this segment. And in our next segment, we are going to discuss the cable license renewal going on right now in Somerville. Our contract with Warner Cable ends in July of 1992. And throughout this renewal process, we've had 2 public hearings, one in February and the other on May 15th, 1991. And we have a tape which shows several people testifying on the importance of public access. So let's watch that tape.
I came up tonight to express my support for community access and the continuation of community access and the educational channel and the municipal channels and all of those things, because they provide an incredibly important service for the community. And I'll give you an example. Right now, the city is going through seemingly endless financial problems. Without those kinds of access, the community would have significantly less knowledge of what's going on a day-to-day basis. We need to be able to express our opinions on a regular basis for them. That's number one. Number two is I'd also like to express my concern and my direct and absolute strongest interest in expanding those services to include some of the more generally accepted community items, such as high school sports, community meetings. Those are the kinds of things that if we can get it done for the people of the community, they'll watch them, and they'll watch them regularly. You will have a larger audience, unfortunately, for a high school football game than you have for the mayor's report. That's an unfortunate circumstance, but it's also true. And with that statement, again, I want to keep it short because I know there's a lot of people here tonight that know a lot more about these subjects than I do. I simply want to come up and again express my continuing support for community access and actually the expansion of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Maurice Rucker. I live at 443 Medford Street, Somerville. Hope everyone had a chance to have dinner because you're probably going to be here for a while. Anyway, public access. Up until a couple years ago, all I had to say was, I'm a black man. I grew up in the projects, on welfare, quit school at a very young age, 17 years old, thought that I could go out there and grab the world and make it on my own. After about 10 years, I realized that wasn't going to happen. Public access has given me a second chance in life that people don't normally get. Just a year ago, I showed up at SCAT. The only qualifications that I had was I lived in Somerville, I had $15 to join, and I was willing to do 4 hours of community service. And they took me in with open arms. Within that past year, I've learned, I've gained confidence. It's like changed my life completely, more than any one thing ever has. I'm now a television producer. I mean, I am a television producer. I'm a host of a show. I'm on the board of directors. I'm not a token. I'm someone whose opinions are valued. I believe that my opinions are valued. You know, people come to me for advice, and I really feel as though they're listening. And that's all come out of 1 year for me at public access. I'm gonna, you know, this is gonna be quick. I told Steve I was gonna give him some of my 3 minutes, if you don't mind, because he's gonna need it. But I now teach. I teach classes in studio production, something that, you know, a year ago I didn't know what control was on the left, I didn't know what control was on the right. Now I'm teaching people. A friend of mine pointed out to me, because we just started doing a class with teenagers for the Somerville youth program. They were saying to me, if I had these same opportunities at 13 or 14, my life would probably be totally different. So I'm just asking you to support public access and to support educational access, and really don't make people wait to be 33 to realize their dreams. That's it.
Hi, my name is Steve Pearsall. I live at 66 Dimmick Street. I've been a Warner subscriber since 1976, a community producer since 1985, and I am currently serving as a producer representative on SCAT's board of directors. In 1989, SCAT was named the best access center in the country. Reviewing the reasons for and the obstacles to this success will illuminate ways the current contract should be improved. One important reason for our national recognition is the hard work of our talented and dedicated staff. Unfortunately, because SCAT's funding has not increased since 1982, the wages we can afford to pay have fallen to the poverty level. We cannot rely on the goodwill of these dedicated individuals forever. The new contract must provide the means for us to pay our staff wages that are and will remain competitive with those in the cable television industry. Another reason for SCAT's overachievement have been the creative ways that our producers have used our equipment. However, because no mechanism was provided to replace worn out and obsolete equipment, we are still using the equipment purchased in the early 1980s. I cannot begin to describe how frustrating it is to see a beautiful creative idea compromised because you are forced to use equipment held together with rubber bands and Band-Aids. All of our equipment must be replaced. Some mechanism must be added to the new contract to replace worn out and obsolete equipment during the life of that contract. Perhaps the most important reason for our unparalleled track record have been the people of Somerville who have chosen to become involved. It is a very prideful thing that we have been able to attract so many excellent people, dedicated people, people who care enough about their community, who care enough about their neighbors to volunteer thousands of hours of their time to benefit their community. The funding that SCAT is asking for is insignificant compared to the $78 million that Time Warner paid to its CEO last year. It is nothing compared to the 37% profit margin Warner reported in Somerville last year. So don't turn your back on this public access gem that Somerville has achieved. Don't turn your back on the world-class access to cable that the citizens of Somerville have come to expect. And above all, don't turn your back on the thousands of hours that hundreds of dedicated people want to invest in their community. Support our request for 2% of gross revenue. Support our request for total recapitalization. Support our request for rent in kind. Support SCAT and support Somerville. Thank you.
Welcome back. What you just saw was a tape of the public hearing held on May 15th, 1991. And with me now are Abigail Norman, the director of SCAT, Rika Welsh, the Malden Access Director, who's also the Regional Coordinator for the National Federation of Local Cable Programmers, and Paul Train, the Director of the Office of Communications for Somerville. Welcome. Thank you for coming. I wanted to ask you first, Rika, can you tell us about the state of public access in the country and how SCAT measures up against that?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm chair of the Northeast region of the NFLCP, and in that capacity, I also sit on the national board. So I'm able to meet 4 times a year with people from all over the country who also work in those capacities on a national level. And we are seeing public access growing like, I'd like to say hand over fist, but for those of us who've been in the battle to protect and to nurture public access, many of us are often thinking that we never thought it would get to be where we are today. So we're very pleased to see how many new access centers there are that are opening. One of the other ways in which we can measure public access is Hometown Video, which is the national video festival that is sponsored by the NFLCP. And we've just seen growing numbers of people who submit tapes. They grow by hundreds each year. This year there are over 2,200 tapes submitted to Hometown Video. So that's a very good indication of what level of production is going on out there, along with the numbers of access centers that are growing. Here in Massachusetts, we should be really proud. We're one of the states with the highest per capita population of access. Perhaps it's because it started early on here in Massachusetts, and many of us who've been strong advocates of it happen to live around here. But in the of the 351 towns and cities in Massachusetts, 250 of them have some form of local programming. And by virtue of the model that SCAT set up 10 years ago, of setting it up as a nonprofit organization, very accessible to everyone and arm's length from both the city and the cable company, that model is about 20% of the access used in the state of Massachusetts has followed that model. And we're seeing it as one of the most successful ways of having access, and it's the same model is being used across the country. So I feel great sitting here in this bastion of where ideas started and a model was created that has helped to make access very successful in this country.
Now, how has the NFLCP help to encourage more access outlets in the country?
Well, basically the 2 or 3 things that the NFLCP does is, one, we're a watchdog both on a federal level and hopefully in state houses across the country for legislation, and we keep an eye out for legislation that might inadvertently often damage the financial viability or the viability in many other ways of public access. A lot of our politicians don't understand public access very well, so we need to be out there talking to them both on a state, well, on a city level, of course, but on a state and national level. So there's the advocacy and legislation protection. But there's also, the NFLCP is a very strong network now of being able to share information about what works and what doesn't work. And as people have met what they feel is a very new situation, controversial programming, how to diversify your income in terms of an access center, the various different things that they start to confront, they have an organization that they can turn to, both on a chapter level, on a regional level, and on a national level. So we've really provided over the years information about all kinds of things, copyright, franchise renewal, things that it would be hard for a community all by itself to really understand and have to hone their own path. We try to make that path as full of information and models and examples of what works. And I think that the NFLCP has been really the backbone and the foundation of, we started with 36 places in the country that had access in 1972 or 73. And we're looking at over 2,000 access centers in this country now, so,
do you feel that cable companies are being more perceptive, are being more open, yes, being more open to access?
Well, in the history of access, the cable companies have always used us when it best afforded them visibility, and we're a good corporate partner in a community. And then once they've had that good corporate community sense and value from what their commitments have been, we've also often had a struggle. Public access is always going to be a struggle because it costs money and it doesn't necessarily prove that it returns money. We'd like to say that it certainly does, that it certainly makes the community more aware of its cable operator. And I know for one in Malden that we've brought on subscribers. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But we're constantly needing to prove that to the cable industry. I would have liked to have seen a day when the cable industry said, gee, this is a totally unique thing that we can offer this country. This is a totally wonderful use of our medium. You cannot go out and get the high school football game at the video store. You can't, you can't have the tapes that we've seen earlier on satellite. They don't make sense. They're wonderful because of their localism in nature. And it would be really wonderful if they could buy into the value that this presents in a community. And maybe we can turn them around. Maybe we can get them there. My job as an NFLCP national board member and as regional chair is to help everyone out there realize that you can't take access for granted. You have to be involved, and you have to let your politicians and your cable company know that there's value here. Mm-hmm. And we need all of those voices to help communicate that to the cable industry and to those who make the legislation.
Okay, well, turning to our own cable license renewal, Paul, I was just wondering if you could give us an overview of where we stand in the process.
Right now we're finalizing a release of the RFP, which is basically a request for proposal from Warner Cable, the current vendor in Somerville, to put forth what they would like to provide Somerville for the foreseeable future, and hopefully in that foreseeable future is proper funding for public access.
So you're speaking with them right now?
Sure, we've spoken to them since I've been on the job, since January of 1990.
Uh-huh.
And we have a tentative relationship at best, but one that we think will hopefully improve in the weeks and months ahead.
Okay, and it's getting almost kind of late in the process. I was just wondering, what if for some reason Warner Cable doesn't put forward everything that the city of Somerville wants? What are the other options for the city?
Well, I mean, like any contract, it's the art of negotiating, and we fully anticipate that in the end, by July, that we will have a contract hammered out, and that will provide proper funding and protection, not only for access centers like SCAT, but for the consumers, enough channels, enough services like a local operation to pay bills in. And those are all things that are important to people in this community, and I think that's the one message that I usually take into meetings with Warner Cable, are the things that I get at my office every day, like calls from constituents saying, we need a local place to pay bills. And that's something that we'll stand up for and take into the meetings, and we'll also, of course, go in and stand up for public access and fight for the things that SCAT has already developed and provided the foundation for.
Well, when you go into these meetings, do you have a representative from SCAT at the meetings?
No, we don't. We have thus far dealt upfront and fairly with SCAT, and through Abigail's efforts have provided a part of the license that reflects SCAT's wishes in the license. And in fact, SCAT itself and the membership here, shaped and molded, in fact, will probably end up writing word for word pretty much the license section regarding access. I think when I go into to represent the city with Warner Cable, I don't only represent SCAT, I represent the consumers, and they're the people who have endured 130% increases in rates in the past 10 years, and those are things that I need to balance: the need for funding for SCAT and for the city, and of course the need to keep down rates in the city.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's all very understandable. I guess what I'm wondering is that we haven't seen anything written down yet, and that's what we're kind of worried about.
I don't know if I follow your question. I've been here on the job since January of 1990. Our commitment, meaning the Capuano administration's commitment to public access, is a matter of public record, not only through public hearings, but of course what we've put forth. We've come in and said to SCAT, whenever you need us, call us. I've been an active member of the board of directors of SCAT and will continue to be one. And I think, although there's always a tentative nature during these periods of renewal, I think most people here at SCAT feel that we're going to do everything we can to provide proper funding for them.
Okay. Well, why don't we turn to Abigail then, and let's ask her what would SCAT want to see in the new contract?
I'll reiterate what I put forward in the hearings last May and June, and of course, Paul, as Paul said, Paul is a member of our board and has helped us very much in receiving these comments and helping, shape them. And I trust that our relationship will lead to incorporation of those ideas in the new license. Basically, right now, SCAT's funding is completely inadequate. I hear camera people in the background complaining about the technical problems with their cameras, and of course, that's all a matter of replacing equipment, which is completely antiquated at this point. We're also operating in a very small and very underpaid staff, and we need to upgrade that a lot. What I'd like to see is, rather than the flat funding that SCAT gets from Warner Cable every year, we'd like to see funding tied to gross revenues of Warner. And I think Warner has made comments in hearings that indicate that they're willing to go that route. Of course, we'd also like to see a good capital grant to recapitalize the place, make some renovations, buy new equipment, bring us up to back up to the kind of technological standard that we should be enjoying. And then we'd like to see what has become completely normal in other area access centers, for example, Malden Access Television, where Rika is the director, small recapitalization grants that occur over a period of time so that as equipment gets older, the center is able to upgrade it, and as technology moves forward, the center is able to upgrade to keep up with a scientific norm. In addition to that, I think to move back to the area of staff, we really should have a full-time person back on staff doing the job that I used to do before I was director of outreach and training coordination, going out to community groups, going out to new segments of the population, youth, the sports teams, veterans posts, and really the countless organizations that exist in the city, working with them to bring them into the studio, to bring them over to our camcorders, in fact, to integrate home camcorder use into programs that can be done for the community, such as the tape we saw earlier by Joe Fortunato. I think we definitely need somebody in that position, and we need somebody who can go and help organizations like Somerville Cambridge Elder Services or the youth program, specifically with technical problems that they might have that they really shouldn't be expected to deal with on their own. In addition, a couple of exciting technical possibilities that I see opening up for us to build on some things that Somerville has really pushed Warner on based on the last contract, and that George Wood from Paul's office has been extraordinarily helpful with. We now have an interconnect that connects us with Cambridge. I think you mentioned that we do run not only Channel 3, which the viewers are watching us on right now, but also Channel 15, which is the community education channel. I think we'll look towards a time when that channel is more of a more tied to the schools and more traditionally bases education, and what we now see as Channel 15 may become a kind of channel where we'll be interconnecting with Cambridge, Medford, Boston, and other neighboring cities on a regular basis.
Okay, that sounds good. Actually, Rika, I wanted to ask you more about this recapitalization program that Abigail just pointed out. What does Malden do?
In Malden, what we had, our license was negotiated and started in 1985, and we had a $225,000 initial capitalization grant. And then in year 4, 7, and 10, we will receive grants of first 35, then 25, and 25. So a total of $85,000 in capitalization follows at 3-year periods after the first 4 years, or whatever it is. It's absolutely essential. It's absolutely essential because the technology changes from when you first capitalize and when you first put things together. Equipment wears out. People's use of camcorders and editing systems, if we're doing our job right, we're getting lots of people in the community involved. We need to add, as access grows, as an access center grows, we need to add to what the availability is there. There is no way in which the bank of microphones and headphones that you have in year 1 are going to be there in year 10.
Okay, great. Abigail mentioned CCTV, which is the public access television station in Cambridge, and we have a tape made by the director, Erwin Hipswin, who has a unique perspective on the issue since he was also the former director of SCAT. So let's watch that tape.
3, 2, 1. Hello, I'm Erwin Hipsman. From 1983 to 1987, I was the executive director of Somerville Community Television. Currently, I'm the director of Cambridge Community Television. Comparing the two is an interesting exercise, not because I was at both, but I think they're interesting institutions. First of all, they're working in communities, Cambridge and Somerville, and that means many things to lots of different people, and I don't need to go into the demographics of the two communities. But the access centers have different histories. First of all, Somerville has had access for about 20 years. Cambridge has had it for about 4 years. SCAT is located in a very prominent location in Union Square, while CCTV is located at an office park in 1 Kendall Square. CCTV has twice as many members and twice the budget of SCAT. And the similarities are perhaps more important. First of all, they're both nonprofit corporations. And we both have a very similar philosophy for access television. We really both look at the community coming in, being able to make the programs without any content restriction. And I think both of us do a very good job at what we do. Another difference is that we both have different cable companies. We are interconnected, however, so we do share programming. So we look at each other as a very different relationship between the two organizations as we would another nonprofit. In that we both share borders and we do share programming and we share some members as well. 10 years ago, there were no nonprofit corporations running community access stations. They're all run by the cable operators. Somerville was really at the cutting edge in setting up a nonprofit corporation. However, by being the first, they were also not made mistakes, but had to live with being the experimenters. Things in their contract like no capital reallocation. We at Cambridge get a percentage of the gross, 3% of the gross, where Somerville gets a flat fee. We were able to grow as the cable operator grow, whereas Somerville, their $85,000 remained constant, and with a consumer price index and inflation, their money actually was less over time. The most important thing from 10 years ago was the cooperation between the city, Warner Cable, and Somerville Community Television. SCAT was once a jewel in the crown of access, and today it's tarnished just through age. And I think with the cooperation of the three, that once again Somerville Community Television can be a gem of community access in the United States. Thank you.
We're back. Abigail Norman has a few things to add. Abigail?
I think it would take me a whole show to really talk about all the exciting possibilities that we could see after July 1992 when the new contract is signed. And in very short order, I'd just like to mention we also have a possibility of expanding the use of the iNet, which connects the schools, public buildings, City Hall. It could include Tufts and the fire department and other places. And we also have the possibility to increase our ability to interconnect with Boston and Medford, and we also have the possibility to start doing some kinds of local programming that costs money that we haven't been able to do in the past, such as the coverage of local sports, which I think many, many consumers would really love.
Great. I want to thank all of my guests for joining me here this evening, and also thank you for joining me. Have a good night.
My name's Steven, and I'm 13. I'm a Christian, and I really like to produce tapes for Somerville Community Access Television. I enjoy it. I've taken a couple classes with my mom. We've taken editing, and we plan on taking a few more.
Hi, I'm Kathy, and I got involved in Somerville Community Access TV because of Steven's interest. Steven does a lot of plays for the school, and they always needed somebody to shoot, so I started to get interested, and now I really like it, and I see it as a good opportunity to have free speech, and as a Christian I feel like, you know, we're censored a lot, but at SCAT we're not censored. We can do whatever we want as far as the programming is concerned, and I'd really like to see more Christians get involved, so hopefully in the future I'll have enough experience to try and bring more people in so that we can have some good Christian programming for our people.
I really appreciate what public access is able to do for the community, and particularly for me, because through Somerville Community Access, I've really learned to use the media, television, as a communication tool, both for the church and also for the wider public community.
And we've done a continuing series about the Old West End. It's one of those shows that you would never get on commercial television or any other type of television, but in Somerville we have about 300 people that are from the Old West End, and we can target that special area and just target it right to them, and they enjoy it, and it would never be on any other type of television. So it gives a small segment of the population something, you know, that they know and like and watch.
And I think that Somerville Community Access Television will really enable someone like me to be able to get in there and start doing things and start producing things and bringing information to, you know, people like me, our level, that we can understand and what things we can be doing, you know, on a day-to-day basis to help each other out and help out our families and our community. And that opportunity lies at SCAT, at Somerville Community Access Television for me.